Hello, everyone, and welcome back to By Design. Today, I wanted to talk about the starving creative, and essentially, I wanted to kill this whole notion of a starving creative, kill this stereotype. So, for too long, brilliant minds that have shaped our world, the designers, artists, creatives, strategists, whoever, it can be easy to feel trapped by the clock. So, we picture your situation. So you're an elite problem solver. That's what creatives do. Problem solver, communicator. But do we always feel like we're compensated like one? There was an interesting TikTok I saw recently, and it was a guy on Subway Takes saying, "This is the worst era of billionaires that we've ever had." Now, I don't know whether I agree or disagree, but his justification was even the Medici family in Florence were paying artists like Michelangelo to make great work, whereas now it's all being put into AI. Now, you could argue that coding and AI is an art form in itself and is a creative job. I've never done it, so I can't comment on it. But it's easy to argue that creatives nowadays are not necessarily compensated for the amount of work that we put out. There was a whole thing by the UK government that happened a few years back that was essentially trying to retrain creatives as mathematicians and things like this. And it was just after the pandemic. And it was quite ironic because when the pandemic was going on, what did everyone resort to find solace in? It was entertainment. It was the creative arts, you know? We all jumped at the chance to like go to a gallery or something like that. So I do think that the stereotype is that the creative person is undercompensated and underappreciated for just how large the contribution is that we make. So, but we also do this as well. I think when we are positioned in a certain way, when we are told that we can only be compensated in a certain way, we start to fulfill our own prophecy, drive that kind of lack of compensation to an extent. And there was also, just to finish off, just another tangent. Finn, the owner of Cortez, he hosted a competition maybe a year ago saying you need to make 10 designs or something for Cortez and drop them and he'll pick the best one and the winner will get 5K or something like that. And on Twitter, everyone took to it. A bunch of people in the community did it. But there were also guys saying, like, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that creatives and designers and really talented people are just putting out their work for free. This was all free work. Only one person got paid after the fact. And Clint had the ability to just steal all the rest of it. And, you know, the way he is, he said that he stole all the rest of the designs. I haven't seen anything to argue that he actually has, but, you know, wouldn't put it past him. But it's an embarrassing thing. As creatives, we always come from this position of lacking and that we need to like prove ourselves. And that can also be included with money. So I wanted to talk a little bit into how to be compensated better, some methods that I'm finding as I go through my own journey as a creative into how to be compensated better, but specifically why charging by the hour is like a professional self-sabotage, and from that, how we can fundamentally restructure the way that we get compensated for creative work. So by the end of this episode, you should have a clear 4-part formula to justify charging 5x, 10x, maybe even 100x of what your current hourly rate is or daily rate is, simply by shifting your focus from effort to impact. And the secret of this is in the value equation. So I've spoken about the value equation a ton of times before. It was something that really, it was a real aha moment for me. It's coined by Alex Hormozi. It's from $100 million Offers, his book. I was just looking behind me there to see which book it was. And so if for anyone doesn't know, Hormozi is an investor, entrepreneur, and author known for his principles on value delivery and business scaling, particularly detailed in his book, $100 million Offers, but he's also done $100 million Leads and $100 million Money Models, which I'm still yet to read. So the core problem, and I actually got this from the guys at Future, FUTURE, you are. The core problem is that most creatives charge by time, as we've already said, typically by the hour, by the day, by the half day. But charging by time means that we are literally punished for being good at our job, right? If we can execute a brilliant logo redesign in 4 hours, that typically takes others 40 hours. A client might question your invoice saying, how did this take you half a day? I could have done it in an hour or something like that. But that question is besides the point. They couldn't have done it because they don't have our expertise, right? But we enable them to ask that question because everything's framed through time. So if we stop being compensated for doing our job well and our job quickly, and we instead move to being compensated for how much value we've delivered, then we can be compensated more, we can have happier clients, and the value equation is a good structure to help us have the language to navigate this conversation. So, are you getting punished for being good at your own job? Charging by the hour rewards slowness and invites unfair comparison based on effort rather than on expertise. So I'll show you how to structure your rates to reflect the true immense value of your speed and your skill. This framework has been used by top tier consulting firms and high leverage business owners to justify premium pricing. And it's also been used by me to justify raising my prices higher. So the client can't compare you if you only discuss the outcome. Your speed is a function. It delivers for the client from years of experience, not simple, just this is the amount of time that I spent on this task. So it's about charging for the amount of leverage that we have. So the goal is shifting the client's focus from how long is this going to take to how much better or faster or easier is this solution that you're offering me, right, versus everyone else in the market. So we need to stop selling hours and start selling the future. So what is this elusive equation that allows us to charge for impact and not hours? Hopefully you're sold on this idea. It defines value. So value equals dream outcome multiplied by a perceived likelihood of achievement, all divided by time delay multiplied by effort and sacrifice. So we as strategic creatives are uniquely positioned to manipulate 3 of those 4 variables very dramatically. And the more we can walk our client through what it is that we're doing with these 3 variables, the more we can reasonably charge. So the idea, in case anyone steps through fractions in maths, the idea is to make the number on top of the equation as big as possible and the number on the bottom of the equation as small as possible. So on top, we've got dream outcome. We'll cover that next. But the denominator on the bottom is time delay and effort / sacrifice. If we can achieve the client's dream outcome quickly, which is a low time delay, putting that number lower, and without any significant effort or sacrifice from the client, then the value tends towards infinity. Anything divided by 0 is infinite, right? So, for example, if a competitor's campaign takes 6 months and requires 3 internal stakeholders, and your design takes 6 weeks and only requires 2 hours of sign off, that's a massive reduction in that denominator. That's a more enticing prospect. That's more value delivered to the client, right? The only way the person taking 6 months and requiring 3 internal stakeholders is going to win is if they are able to convince the client that they can deliver the dream outcome better, right? That's the only way. So the only thing limiting how much we can charge once we've minimized the bottom of the equation is how much the client really desires that dream outcome and how much we've convinced them that we are the person to get them to that dream outcome. So how do we find out what that dream outcome is? And this brings us to the most critical phase of the process as a designer, in my opinion. And that's the prospect interview. This isn't like a discovery call, it's like a value assessment. We need to move the client's goal from a nice to have to a must have dream outcome. And the only way we can do that is by knowing the client, knowing their business, knowing the opportunity better than they do. So a nice to have is an outcome that prospects won't pay premium prices for. A dream outcome is more visceral. It's a high stakes improvement. It might lead to more ticket sales, better athlete recruitment, higher sponsorship retention, reduced brand risk, really important things for the business. So our job is to listen for their pain points and articulate their dream in a way that's better than they can, and also articulate the dream in a way that's achievable. So instead of saying, I need a new deck, it's about saying, I need a deck that convinces the VP of partnerships that we are the future of the league and justifies a $5 million investment. That's like a dream outcome. Okay. And it can be psychological as well. You know, the more you get to know the client, the more you can understand outside of work what their dream outcome is. And then you can try and tie as many threads into that as possible. You know, like people act irrationally. That's psychology. So the more we can understand the irrational tendencies of the client or of the prospect, the better, really. So I take my clients through a whole interview list. There's a whole interview list there. I'm pretty sure I've shared it. If I haven't, I will do another podcast episode on it with all the interview questions. But I'll definitely go through it. And it really gets into the nitty gritty. One of my favorite questions that I ask people is, if a celebrity were to endorse your brand or your product or your service or whatever, which celebrity would do it? So immediately the prospect starts thinking about which celebrities embody the brand or the product, which celebrities are already doing that thing, right? It's very easy to say, oh, I want Cristiano Ronaldo to do it because he's like he touches everything everywhere. But if you really get the client to really think about it, and it's like, okay, well, I want this person because they're really stylish, or I want this person because they stand for something, this person because they are always talking about the environment, whatever it might be, who would be the dream endorsement. So once we've established that, we can also talk about the anti endorser. Who is it that you actually don't want to be at all? Who is it that you don't want to be associated with the brand at all? And there's no shade to the individual. It's just not a good fit. And that can also help to understand the dream outcome. So once we've established this high value outcome, we can introduce options that reflect varying levels of how much we can service that pain point. And then this is the difference between charging for a static design deliverable, like a logo file, versus charging for the high leverage impact, which is a logo which brings brand trust and brand identity and future revenue. And it might be a design system as well. And it could lead into merch and all these different things, right? So if we take a tiered approach to how much we can achieve their dream outcome, then we can also understand how much of a dream it is for them and how we can remove things and add different things on to just raise that value. It's all about delivering value for the prospect. Okay, so we've established the value. Now, if we talk about the final psychological step, this is price perception. So we are actually doing our clients a disservice by charging too little. Okay, and this was really difficult for me to get my head around because it seems like the golden goose, the best thing for any client is to get what they want and get it for free, right? But quality perception naturally increases with higher prices. And this is a cognitive bias, but we can use it, we can manipulate it as a powerful business tool. So there's this famous experiment that Hormozi actually talks about in his book. People were given the same wine to drink multiple times, but in one trial, they were told the wine was like $10 a bottle. In another, they were told it was $90. And every time the subjects rated the more expensive wine as tasted better, even though the wines were identical. So a high price is the quickest and easiest way to increase the perceived likelihood of achievement variable in this value equation, because immediately our cognitive bias says, oh, well, if it's expensive, it has to be good. So by charging a premium, we signal confidence, we reduce scope creep because the client now values our time more highly. So they're not going to keep adding random things on. And we attract clients who take their own dream outcomes seriously. So the worst thing that we can do, we can deliver all of this information and then give like this tiered price list. And if people still say like they don't want it, one of two things has happened. Either we haven't convinced the client that we are the ones to deliver their dream outcome. We haven't done our job well enough. But if we have done our job well, then it just means that the client's dream outcome actually isn't a dream at all. It's a nice to have. And that's probably a client that we want to avoid anyway, because it's just going to be a bit difficult to work with that client, because as a nice to have, it's kind of like, well, I'm paying for something which could end up being a gimmick. Like, I need it to look exactly like this, and it can just make the relationship a bit difficult. But by charging a premium, we signal confidence, we reduce scope creep, and again, we attract clients who take their own outcomes seriously. So we need to stop apologizing for prices, and we need to embrace the value that we create and not the time that we spend. And we need to really drive through on that value creation piece. So the starving creative is a myth, really, and it's rooted in trading hours for expertise. But we should leverage ourselves differently. We should shift from charging for a deliverable to charging for the outcome. So we do this by mastering this branding equation, by mastering this value equation. If we charge for premium rates, we can attract premium clients, but it only all fits together if we deliver premium value, which is all we should be thinking about. This is another thing, just as a slight tangent. I think as creatives, we can be prone to delivering based on our own ego, but delivering value is all about making the client happy and delivering their dream outcome. And we are just the vehicle to do this. You know, Yoda doesn't really have any care in the world about what Luke Skywalker looked like or how specifically he worked, but he was the vehicle that Luke Skywalker had to use to become the Jedi Master that he was. And we need to position ourselves as Yoda. It's not about us, it's about the client. There's a really good book, Building a Story Brand, which talks about this. The client is in a difficult spot, and we are the guru, we're the help, we're the Yoda that helps them get to their dream outcome. And that's the way we need to see ourselves. And the quicker we can deliver that, the better we can deliver that with no sacrifice or effort from the client. And the more we can understand the client and their desires, the more we can reasonably charge for it. So, a question that I have to close is, what is the one service that you currently charge by the hour for that you can immediately restructure to become an outcomes based package? And how is it that you're going to go about doing that? Right? How is it that you're going to deliver more value for the client ahead of time? Pricing structures can vary. Like, it depends on what you're comfortable with. You know, you can get the client to pay 50% upfront and then 50% on completion, or break it into more pieces, whatever it is. That's fine. But the overall price needs to reflect the value that you're delivering. And if you can't reasonably charge more, then it means that you're not reasonably delivering more value. What does that mean? It means you need to go back to the value equation and see which of the variables you can tinker with to drive that value higher. Feel free to send me an email or post in the comments about your plan and your what it is that you plan to do. And that's it. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you got something out of it. If you did, please share it with someone. That's the only fee for now that I'm going to be charging. Just share it. Share it with someone that you like. Please follow, please like, please subscribe, whatever platform you're on. The feedback and the response has been really good. This is episode 27. So, you know, got a little bit of skin in the game now. But yeah, I'm going to continue this into 2026. So I'd really love to hear what it is that you like, what it is that you might not like, what it is that you want to hear from me. But again, thank you very much for listening. And I will see you all on the next one.